Well, I think every time any of us sit down to write a novel, we are having to reinvent the form. I mean, isn't a definition of the novel that any of us would sort of agree on. And when we begin to write it, we're thinking about what this means. So I don't want to say that any of these things are impossible, but it's very difficult for me to imagine that. I think that, when you talk about the internet and you talk about all these ways in which we can now be in communication, we're talking about a very superficial kind of communication, a communication which I think those who are participating in it don't expect it to last more than, or be relevant in a way for more than, a breath, more than a day. And I think what novels can do, what literature does, is delve into the world of the private self and in the slowest, most careful, most thoughtful way, in a kind of space that just doesn't exist in life, in any other place. You can't find it in the movies, you can't find it in the internet. It's a moment in which you have access to the deepest part of an inner life.
But if I can challenge you with that thought, think of the Bible, not very much unlike Wikipedia, is a work of collective wisdom. It was written by at least hundreds of people.
I object to the idea of Wikipedia as collective wisdom. It's collective facts. It's people adding facts together. It's not wisdom. And I think that, again, making this distinction between things that exist on the uppermost layer of life, which all of us have access to at any time that we want, in conversation and on the internet, is very different from what it means to try to access the sanctity of the private self. And this is going to become a more and more important activity as the world becomes more global, as we begin by necessity to think of ourselves as masses living together. As we become more and more politicized in our daily lives because we're up against each other in such a real way, how do we continue to salvage this sense of self and the idea of the individual? And I think that is the work of literature.
So do you think we're going towards a future of individualism?
Well, I mean, I think that we will continue to have this tension between how we think of ourselves as groups and how we think of ourselves as an individual. But I think that as soon as the idea of the importance of the individual self, begins to be lost in thinking of ourselves in a kind of political way, we'll be in trouble.